Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Raza here, and in today's video I have with me Mr. Adrian Davis all the way from the United States of America. First of all, thank you so much sir for joining in, and kindly give a brief introduction to the audience so that audience may know you as well.
So first of all, thank you so much, Robert, for having me on. I know we've been trying
It's a pleasure, yes,
for some time, so thank you so much for having me. My name is Adrian Davis, and I work in the space of learning and development, but for my entrepreneurial side of things, I have dabbled in many businesses, from publishing companies for publishing books to real estate for housing, for personal development, which is one of the biggest things that I'm doing now, which is teaching leaders and corporations on how to be better in the organization. So that's a brief about me, but I know we'll get into more questions, so I'll give it back to you.
Well, thank you so much for a very good introduction. It was. So we will be proceeding with questions as discussed earlier. We will be discussing about entrepreneurship. So the first question here is that how can students think of new ideas that have value in the market?
So, Muhammad, one of the things that I would always say is to anybody who's thinking about starting any business or flourishing the business that they're in, is to think about what you're already using. When you look around, see what other people are using, because if they're using that at a massive rate, it means that it's a want, it's a need for it, right?
Yes.
And in business, supply and demand is major. It's if you have a lot of demand for whatever it is, you will serve a lot of people and ultimately stay in business. But if it's an idea that you thought of that you only feel really good about, and not a whole lot of people are feeling the same way, then that's where the problem is. And so I hear a lot of people who are passionate about things. They say a lot of things that they're really excited about, but they haven't checked to see if other people really, really need or want that product.
Okay, well, what will you do if there is a conflict between your passion and the need in the market? Then what would you will be going with your passion, or you will be changing your career according to the market?
Yes, that's a really, really good question, because I think that when you're talking about passion and talking about the need, I would always say go with your passion. But I will say this. You have to make sure you do your research, because if you're passionate about something, I'm sure there's people who are passionate. And that may mean that you may have to move locations, geographic locations. Now that we're in a information age, that may mean that you need to find a way to provide that resource to them virtually or digitally. But you got to make sure that you get in front of your people, because if you're passionate, let's just say about creating
Videos, yes,
just anything, right? And there are a lot of people who are not in your area that use this particular type of product. You got to go where people are, because there are some people who will spend money on what you think about. So I think that when we talk about passion, you got to realize that sometimes your passion takes you out of your actual location of where you were born, you're raised, or you're currently living, but the need is there, or the want is there.
Okay, moving on to the next question, that how can we draw attention to a new product? Because obviously we need a good first impression in the market, because if we are starting a new business as a student or as an entrepreneur, then we need a good impression, a good first impression in the markets. So how can we initially draw attention to a new product?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no one answer for that. I think one of the best ways to do it is to find out where your people are and get, if they love sports, right, then you got to find a way to splash as much money in front of sports venues with your particular product that you can, right? Because in business, it's not about having the best product. Sometimes it's about having the product that people know of and that is visible in front of them. Because there's a lot of people who's like, oh my gosh, I had that idea a long time ago and it went nowhere. And then you have other people who give probably 80% of that product. It's not as good, but it's everywhere and people see it and they're like, I'm picking it up. So you have to make sure you get in front of it. And sometimes it's easy as doing the groundwork and not spending a whole lot of money, just making sure that you're knocking on doors, or you're sending out flyers, or you're finding a way on social media to get in front of individuals, doing kind of what you did. You connected with RL, and then RL connected
Yes.
you with me. And so you just really have to be strategic in the way you do it, but you have to go out and get in front of the individuals that you're really seeking to put your product or your service in front of.
No, that's very well described by you, sir. Moving on to the next question is that we're studying entrepreneurship as a course in our ongoing Bachelor's of Electrical Engineering, and we have studied about two techniques of fluctuation and causation. And as an entrepreneur, what would you prefer, fluctuation or causation, and why?
Yeah, when I saw that question initially, I was a little torn on it because, you know, like I said, I've been doing entrepreneurship for now, it's about 15 years, maybe even more than that. Um, yeah, definitely more than that, because that's my latest business. And, I think about, causation from the standpoint, if my definition is the same as yours, is really around, what is the need? What caused you to get into
Yes.
the area of business that you're in? And I am huge on that. There's been ideas that I've had, and know people who had ideas who were before their time or outdated, and it didn't go anywhere because the cause was not there for them to be in business, or it was beyond their time. And so I really kind of lean towards that idea, because when you move with the times and you connect with the people, you tend to do great things, build great relationships, and your products continue to, you don't just do one product, you tend to be able to build more and more, because your people will tell you, hey, this is what we need. And so the cause of why you're creating it is one of the reasons why you're in business.
Okay, well, that's very well said, sir. So moving on to the next question is what I consider is the most important question of this debate, because I think creating a business plan is extremely important for your whole business setup. So what aspects an individual should keep in mind while creating a perfect business plan for his startup?
Yeah, so Mohammed, if you've ever been asked to give anybody any money, right? Any type of anything, right? And you didn't know why, it was just kind of random, you usually start to ask questions like, well, I would love to help, but why do you need this? Or, is there any benefit? All of these questions. The same thing with a business plan. You're going to go at some point in time and you're going to show your business plan to either a partner, to an investor, to, whoever, right? And it needs to have all of the elements that make sense. If they were to ask you questions such as, you are about to ask me for, $500,000, right? And it's going to do what? You should be able to have all of that in place. Well, with this money, we're going to break this money down into these areas, and we're going to work in this particular cause. Our business does this much business, and you should really have these things broken down. So you should definitely have a budget or a prospectus. That's one thing that you should have.
Okay.
Your mission or your focus or your vision for it. And then you should have a lot about your competition. What
Okay.
are they doing that you choose to do, but you're going to do better, or you're going to do uniquely? Because that will get your investors excited. If they see something
Yes.
that's more novel, then they'll say, oh my gosh, okay, I hadn't seen this. I operate off of a model called the PBSI model. I created that model, but it pretty much stands for address the problem, tell why you are a benefit to that particular organization, what's the secret sauce, which is the S, and then how do you invite them into either giving or utilizing your service. And if you go through that and figure that out and address those things, what you will find is that you have a complete package in your plan to be able to answer a lot of the questions. So when someone says, well, what are you thinking about in the next 2 to 5 years? You should be able to have a perspective of saying, if the business continues to do this in this geographic location of where we're stated, we'll be able to move from this many units or this many sales to this many sales. And when we move to those sales, we'll be able to expand, we'll be able to bring on new people, on and on and on, right?
Yes.
And so I think, to your point, the aspects of that is really a business structure.
Okay.
You really should know what kind of, are you going to be a corporation, LLC, sole proprietor? You should know all of those things in there, because as you know where all of that information is, and it's easy for you to get to, it's easy for you to share with someone else. One of the things that I've seen
Exactly. Yes.
multiple times is that someone asks a question about your business plan, and you're like, I hadn't got it yet, it's in my head. It can't be in your head, it has to be on paper.
It has to be, yes, on paper. Exactly. That's very well said. All right, moving on to the last question, that how can we stay connected with high profile entrepreneurs? Because obviously we need help from those who have already done that kind of a business, because they have all that experience. So as a starter, as a startup student, you need to be connected with those who have done already that kind of a business. So how can we find the right people for our startup, those high profile entrepreneurs? Yes.
Yeah, so the easiest answer that I can give you is ask. You ask when you ask to talk to multiple people on a panel. I think you'll ask. Sometimes you'll get people who say no. Sometimes you get people who say,
Yes.
give me a little time. And then you have someone who right away says, yes, I love what you're talking about. I would love to be able to mentor a person such as yourself, and they'll do it. And so, I remember it took me about 4 years to find someone that I really, really, really wanted to have as my mentor that was doing well over. I mean, I'm talking about, I think he had done somewhere around about $4 billion in sales. And he, everybody was telling me, hey, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. And I kept reaching out to him and said, we're going to get together. We're going to get together. I hadn't forgot about you. We're going to get together. And one day I just said, because I was actually trying to sell him a product. And one day I said, will you just be my mentor? And the one day that I said that, with less than 30 days later, we were at a coffee house talking. And from that point on, he's been a mentor of mine. So you have to ask, but you have to make sure that you are bringing some value to the table as well. That's one of the biggest things that mentees don't do. They only try to absorb information and they never try to give back out. As soon as I ask someone to be a mentor of mine, I also say, how can I help? I may be able to run, copies of papers. Maybe I can connect you with people. Maybe I can give you speaking appointments. One of the things, I may not be able to give you business like you're doing at $4 billion in sales, but I may be able to help you with some of the administrative work. How can I help so that I can still be able to be around you, so that I can get the information that I want to get? And I think just asking and being very selective, because also, and I think this is very important, Muhammad, you may see somebody from a distance and think that they're good for you. And when you start to get close, you realize their values may not be the same as yours. They may not do business the way you like. It's okay to back out. It's okay to say, you know what, they're not the person I thought it was, and go ask someone else. But either way, you drive that. And so I think that one of the best ways to do it, to build your team around you, is to make sure that you ask.
Well, there's a problem arises right here, that not everyone is humble enough as you are, because people don't respond usually. It's a very rare case that you get a good response on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. So how can we connect with high profile entrepreneurs? Because those who have so many followers get so many messages daily. So it is very important to get that message right. That effectiveness of message is very important. So how can you add into my message, like I messaged you, and that was through Miss R.L. Fleming said, yes. So that was a reference. Now, if I had to communicate with you as a stranger, then I had to be a very effective in my communication to convince you to be on my show. So it is very important. Yes, the communication is very important. So how will you describe this?
Yeah, so what you just did is you gave something, and that's one of my key values when I'm doing anything about building relationships. I try to give first, and so understand that giving a platform to someone for an interview or for anything, that's an opportunity for them to be able to speak a little bit about themselves, about their experiences. That's one of the first things. That's one of the easiest ways for you to get connected with someone. Say, hey, I have a talk show, or I have an interview, or I have this. I would love for you to pour into, because it's not asking them to give money. It's not asking them to buy something. It's asking them to give of themselves. And that's an easy way to do it. And to be honest, oftentimes it's more valuable. But if you come on and say, hey, you know, I really want you to be my mentor. You know, I'm looking to do entrepreneurship. It's not, for lack of better words, it's not sexy enough. It doesn't draw them in. It doesn't make the person say, okay, let me stop what I'm doing and do it. Now, you know, I can only speak for myself. I try to get on as many calls as possible, but also understand that what you just experienced is a couple of individuals who are in alignment with each other, and it just works. Sometimes they're just people who, that's not their personality, that's not their character. So you have to keep asking. I told you it took me 4 years. At the same time, I was still asking other individuals, and I was getting no's all the time, or I was getting yeses, and then they would not show up for interviews, or they wouldn't show up for meetings. And so, you know, I didn't get discouraged. I just kept on going. So I think that if you know of someone, have a list of people that you want to go after, and then you just keep asking. You keep asking, because it's not linear. As you saw, you went to Ms. RL, and then you didn't go directly to me. So sometimes in life, you don't go directly to it. You have to get connected to individuals. There's a law that, and I think it's less than this now, but it says 6 degrees of separation. I think it's more closer to 4 degrees now. But, you know, when you talk about 6 degrees of separation, that means that's pretty much 5 conversations that you can have to get to the right person that you're really choosing to get. And you know, be willing to make that that move, or that intentionality, and go after that person.
Okay, well, that's a very good positive response, sir. I really appreciate your words, and thank you so much for this interview. And kindly, if that concludes our dialogue, so if you have any message for people here in Pakistan, then you can share at the end of this conversation. Yes.
Well, you know, around entrepreneurship, you know, the biggest thing, I mean, I'm teaching this to my son right now. You know, don't think about the money. Don't think about how big the business can be. Think about how you can serve and give value to people. That's where I am right now. I've kind of left that area of trying to figure out, you know, how much money I can make, and am I going to be okay, to how many people can I serve? How can I do it on a massive level? And if you continue to think of that, what oftentimes you'll do is you'll see a problem. And the bigger the problem, the bigger the solution. Usually what happens is the bigger your influence when you do that. So think about being a problem solver, think about adding value, and then understand that the influence and the monetary gifts and the building of the entrepreneur venture will be the things that come after that. So that's what I would leave you guys with.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for your words. It was a great pleasure to talk with you. It was a very good conversation, and lots of love from Pakistan, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes. Back from the US. Let's stay connected, okay?
Okay, stay connected. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Right.
Take care.